system of governance is flawed, and that devolution will not only help to deepen democracy by giving more power to states and local governments, but it'll bring governance closer to the people, strengthen accountability and transparency at the local level, and foster national unity by allowing states and regions to drive development, which he says will ultimately reduce tensions and promote unity. So how much has Dr. Agbakoba's argument added to the ongoing debate about constitutional reform in Nigeria? Is there much support for his call for devolution? Well, for more on this, I'm joined now on the line from Lagos by the Senior Advocate of Nigeria and former President of the Nigerian Bar Association, Dr. Olisa Agbakoba. Dr. Agbakoba, thank you very much indeed for joining us. And I've scanned... Thank you. I've scanned through the latest draft of your thesis titled Devolution is the Solution, comprehensive as usual and clearly thoroughly researched. And you sound pretty convinced that if the foundational reforms that you propose by way of devolution are properly and fully implemented, it'll signal a pivotal turning point for the better in Nigeria's history. This is not the first time that you've talked about this. What has changed since the last time, just a few months ago?
Nothing has changed, but I just thought I should continue to say what I've been saying. And what I've been saying is that the way we're structured, a diverse ethnicity, the best thing that will work for us as diverse people is federalism. And that unless we have space in Nigeria, some call it confederation, unless we have space and give the regional ethnicities their own independence within the context of a Nigerian federal system, it's unlikely we'll go very far. As you know, we've been at this devolution discussion since 1999, effectively making it 25 years. Whenever you have a new National Assembly, they inaugurate a constitution review committee, but nothing's happening. So I thought I should add my voice again to say I'm still here, I'm still saying the same thing I've been saying, and not unless we do this would we see the progress that I think Nigeria ought to be showing the world. So that's why I'm saying it again.
Well, indeed. And I think just scanning through social media and traditional media, that there seems to be growing support for that position because you've been relentless in calling for devolution and restructuring. But I'm wondering whether many people, particularly in the administration and National Assembly, appear to be listening.
Apparently not. And which is why I looked back at the precedent since the last 25 years. And I said the first point I made was the National Assembly has been at it for 25 years, no result. Even though I must acknowledge, let me take that back. I must acknowledge that the National Assembly is in fact doing constitutional reform, but very slowly and piecemeal. I know that this year alone, they've passed 80 amendments, but it's not really having the impact we want it to have. So that's one formula that is on the table. The other formula has been the national conference called by many heads of states, going back to the time of OBJ, IBB, Abacha, Buhari. No, Buhari didn't, Jonathan, but nothing. So what I think needs to happen is to ask the president of Nigeria, as the chief executive officer, imbued with powers under Section 5 of the Constitution, shouldn't you drive this? You know, one thing I must say for Trump, like him or not, he is in front. And I think the president of Nigeria should be in front. So this is a big issue that the president himself should be driving. And if he does it, I think you will see big change. He's the guy who should drive this policy.
I think many people would agree with that. But let's get through the threat to the Nigerian estate, the aspirations, its ability to survive, to thrive if it fails to massively devolve powers and to fundamentally restructure this country? Just tell us what the threat is, the biggest threat.
The biggest threat is that we'll continue to limp along. Poverty will rise, unemployment will increase, there will be social tensions, insecurity will be on the rampant, simply because there's no one who is accountable for anything. And you can see through the last 25 years that we've not really gone far. We've had all sorts of development plans, but tell me where it has taken us. So that's the clear and present danger that we're now. Look at the coup rumor. Whether it's true or not true, that's not good for democracy. It's not good for Nigeria that we should be talking about coups and President Tinubu is changing his service chiefs, lending credence to the story. We're way above all this. We should be number 10 in the table of industrial nations, but we're not. So that worries me. But if we don't address this cancer, which is probably at stage 2, it's going to go to stage 5. And that is an existential threat for Nigeria. So anyone who is a politician, just look what's happening. The name of the game in town now is decamping. That should be the last thing on our minds if we're serious people. So I see a clear and present danger unless we have somebody who will inject energy into the process, which I think is the president, then we're likely to be in trouble as we go along.
Well, I mean, I remember the Patriots kept coming on this program after they had a meeting with the president about this fundamental sort of constitutional reform, complete constitutional change. And they said that he told them that his priority at the moment was economic reform. But your argument is that economic reform isn't going to go anywhere unless there is this devolution that you're talking about.
Yeah. You see, it's what we call root cause analysis. So economic reform, and I must, applaud Wale Edu, the Minister of Finance, in what must be an extremely tough and challenging job. But the problem with economic reform is that you can't get reform going in the context of a very weak political foundation. So I'd rather put it the other way around. I would say if you have a political process, well-structured in Nigeria, it will release trapped energy. And that trapped energy will go out into the regions or the states or whatever federative unit you want to call them, and then to create development and restructuring bottom up. So I'm not sure that we can get it right by prioritizing economic reform without looking at what's under the table that is completely rotten. So that's what I think should come first. The whole notion of a strong political foundation that can carry the reform process. Then you will have the sort of reform agenda that we're looking for.
And it is your contention, is it, that, I mean, I know you mentioned this a little bit earlier, that the constitutional amendments that are currently being proposed and are under consideration as part of the constitution review process, that there is not enough accommodation there for the kind of devolution that you're proposing?
No, there's not. There's not. What they do, I would not dismiss what they are doing entirely, because in fairness to them, they've actually proposed and enacted 80 constitutional amendments. But the bulk work of devolution has not been dealt with, which is constituting a new political structure. That's what we need, a new political structure. The current federation process, which is so pyramidal, is not working. So we need to devolve. When you devolve, you create regions. So I have two suggestions. One suggestion would be to adopt the 1963 model, where you had regions, or absolutely to take up what the Abuja Accords threw up in 1967. That, I think, is a perfect model. So it's either the 1963 model or the Aburi model. But the current model, where you have the federal government exercising 68 items of power on the exclusive list and 30 items of power on the concurrent list, which makes 98, to the exclusion of the states and the local governments, simply is not working. So it's about recasting the entire federal process. Amendments are useful. I applaud the National Assembly for how far they have gone, but they themselves will see that it isn't really working. That what we need is a transformational process that drastically reorganizes, rearranges Nigeria's federal system. That's what I'm looking for.
And you talked about, just a minute ago, the president driving this process. But I'm wondering, in his absence, if you like, what sort of ideological convergence is there in Nigeria about this issue of devolution? Because this is a country where politics is often based on ethnicity, and different ethnic kingpins come together in some sort of convergence only when the main interest is state power and access to sort of national largesse. So I'm wondering whether that kind of north, east, west political support will be needed to pull this off if the president is not forthcoming.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Not only that, you also need the influence of the ethnic sub-nationalities. Afenifere, Ohanese, Pandef, they should all be more organized in pressing this case forward. I think that these sub-national entities can do more than they are doing to add to because what's needed is pressure, civil society pressure. That's not coming strong enough. So I think I need to see civil society, and that's why I'm here as a lone voice, saying what I've been saying for the last 25 years. So we need to see organized social pressure to push. But for me, I've seen the confab model and I've seen the National Assembly model. I think the person who has not been used at all ought to be persuaded to say, give this a go as CEO of Nigeria. Section 5 authorizes you to be our chief executive officer. So let's give this a go. Let's get behind you. And if the president were to push it, don't forget that the president pushed for something that was very surprising to everybody: the financial autonomy process for the local government systems. And it worked. He went to the Supreme Court and he won. That has given financial autonomy to the local government, and they're getting a lot more revenue. What needs to now be seen is how they use it, but at least the first step has been achieved. They've gotten that financial independence from the state governors. So you can see what would happen if the president were to put his weight on this subject. I think it will make a big change. But also, the ethnic sub-nationalities ought to be putting their weight. And then maybe we can get a convergence. National Assembly will then see, oh, things are happening, and then they'll join the bandwagon. But what is absolutely clear to me, we can't run on this model. We can't run on this model. It will take I don't know how far we can go with this. 5 years, 10 years, and we'll be exhausted.
And again, looking at your very thorough research and analysis in your document, Devolution is the Solution, I know that beyond actually looking at the impact of all of this, the non-implementation of devolution and all the rest of it, you've also looked at the leadership in this country, because you've talked about it just a minute ago, and whether they really want the right diagnosis and the right treatment for this country. I mean, I'm wondering how much this issue of devolution raises questions for you about the mendacity of Nigerian politicians and the dysfunction of parliament, for example, when you say to them with evidence that devolution is the problem in Nigeria, and they say that it isn't.
Well, Charles, you know very well that we don't have political parties. We have political parties only to the extent that it's the access to power. Otherwise, when would Peter Mba in Enugu decamp? I'm not a politician, so I don't care who is in power, whether it's APC or PDP. But where is Peter Mba? You've been elected governor on the platform of PDP. Why are you decamping? What about the ideology that drove you? And the governor of, where is it now? The governor of, what state now? So many governors are decamping. So that questions their political ideology. So it makes me conclude, and if I'm wrong, I apologize to the governors, but it gives me the impression that there's nothing like ideology. So if there's no ideology, then it means that these guys go to power for the raw essence of power. So devolution is going to be the last thing on their minds. And what's playing out shows that that's not on the top drawer of their agenda. So they're not interested. So the person who should be interested is President Tinubu. He should be interested because he's the Nigerian president. And I remember very clearly in his campaign manifesto, it was boldly written that he would be at the forefront of restructuring. P.O.B. said the same thing. Atiku said the same thing, but we don't hear it happening. None of the politicians are talking about restructuring. Rather, it's about, PDP campaign, this guy wants to go to court, just wahala everywhere. That's not right. That's not right. That's the problem.
And I mean, in furtherance of the point you just made, this is an issue that you say needs to be in the 2027 election campaign so that it turns it into a seminal issue. But nothing so far from the political parties, and they don't, at the very least, appear to even be talking about it. And that worries you.
That's it. Absolutely, it worries me, and that's why I put together this policy paper to say devolution must be on the ballot for 2027. We need to hear what the serious contenders will be making of devolution. Because you see, the reason why I'm strong about devolution is if you look around, you see small countries in Africa, Namibia, Botswana, Rwanda, Kenya, even Ivory Coast at war the other day, Egypt, Morocco. I was doing a YouTube review on Saturday, and I saw that these countries have opened the gap. That it's now about 10-year development gap between these countries that I mentioned and Nigeria. Because they're serious countries with serious agendas to push their countries forward. But our political class here are interested in raw power. They're not interested in development. So that's why I return to the point that we have to devolve power so that the regional units or the federating units can get it right.
And let me just, because I apologize if I make you repeat yourself, but the points you're making are so important that perhaps they need to be emphasized and emphasized over and over again. Would you say that Nigeria is at risk if it does not adopt devolution as a solution, or just under strain?
In between strain and at risk makes no difference. What's important is that Nigeria is not making any progress. Rather, it is deteriorating. And anybody who's watching the Nigerian political space will be, of course, very concerned that we're not moving forward. So I'm concerned, and I don't know whether to say Nigeria will be at risk or whether there's a strain, but whatever it is, strain or risk, isn't good for Nigeria's political temperature, because anything can happen. Absolutely anything can happen. We just, as I said earlier in the program, we saw the specter of new service chiefs visiting Aso Rock. That's not good for democracy. Democracy has 4 major cycles. So you go from authoritarian governments to semi-authoritarian or semi-democratic to illiberal to liberal. Now we've been oscillating. We've never gone past a liberal. So we'll get semi-democratic, illiberal, we go back. Why aren't we going forward? We should look at the symptoms. And one of the symptoms is an extremely weak system where you have 774 dead local governments, 36 absolutely financially crippled state governments, maybe apart from Rivers and Lagos. All the others are broke. They just run to Abuja for handouts, to collect printed money. So we don't even have anything to back out the fundamentals of this country. So the country is technically insolvent. So why can't someone say, look, how do we resolve this? And I'm shocked that no politician sees the seriousness behind what I'm saying. So the prescription that I would give if I was a doctor called to the ICU to look at Nigeria, I'd say, look, this guy needs to devolve powers. That's what we need to do. And if you don't do it, there's an existential threat looming.
And obviously, that existential threat affects all of us, not just a group of people
Absolutely.
or a section of the country. So do you think
Absolutely.
then? Do you think, Dr. Agbakoba, that what this whole process of devolution, and I know you mentioned this earlier, but let's re-emphasize that point,
yes,
that what this whole process of devolution
sure,
that you propose is lacking right now is a kind of scaffolding superstructure of regional, ethnic, and political agreements, a sort of people power backing
absolutely,
that would drive it on, so that if the politicians allow cracks to appear, they won't widen till the whole thing crumbles. But you don't have anything like that united political thrust right now, do you?
No, we don't. That's the part of the problem. So when they call the sack, so maybe some of the political people know that this is a problem, but there isn't a political engineer who can say to the architect, design for me something that will work. The truth is, Nigeria has never been at its weakest. I was a street commander under the military process. I can tell you that it's more difficult now to protest, and that's the irony. And it's also something that isn't easy for me to say, that the political space under the military was wider. It's a shock than today. Is Showore not in prison? What did he do? That's the problem. So we are really, really losing, our way. And we need to be very careful about how we need to proceed, so that 2027 should be resolving our problems rather than throwing it up. So that's the worry I have.
And on that note, I want to thank you very much indeed. And I would urge you to keep making these points as vociferously as you have. Dr. Olisa Agbakoba is a senior advocate of Nigeria and former president of the Nigerian Bar Association.
So, my people, that is it. Dr. Olisa Agbakoba has said it all. Nigeria's system is indeed flawed, and there is no way we will progress if we continue like this. The devolution of power is the solution. Let's be honest, Nigeria's current system of government is overly centralized. Yes, too much power is concentrated in Abuja, while the state and local governments are left with little control over their own resources and policies. Think about it. How can a country as large, as diverse as Nigeria be effectively managed from one central point? How is it going to be possible? Dr. Agbakoba is talking about the evolution of power, not breaking up Nigeria. Even though that we know that the only solution for this country called Nigeria is either what he's saying here, like going back to regional government, or we divide this country. But right now, he's not talking about breaking up Nigeria, but giving more authority and responsibility to the state. That means letting states control their resources, manage their security, and make real decisions that directly affect their people. Yes, if state has more autonomy, maybe we would see real competition and progress across regions instead of everyone waiting for monthly allocation from federal government. Right now, our system rewards independency, not productivity. I remember before 2023 election, Tinubu was shouting about restructuring this and that. But now, Tinubu is there. What is he doing about it? Like, what is he doing about it? Every time we keep saying Nigeria will rise, Nigeria will rise. But how can he rise when all the ladders are broken at the top? Tinubu is there now. What is he doing about restructuring? Is it when he go for the second time, my people? This is what they're going to use again to campaign for 2027 election. Even Nigerians, even those people that are excited about 2027 election, are you guys not seeing what is happening in Nigeria? Even after that shambolic 2023 election. See what happened in Edo State. See what is about to happen in Anambra State. This one now that Soludo is coming like plain in public, telling people that, hey, if he votes, he's going to give him money. So they are not hiding it again. Then, how do you think that 2027 election is going to be different? Honestly, the only solution is everything Dr. Olisa Agbakoba said here. I don't know what you think. I would love you guys to leave your thoughts in the comment section as always. Subscribe for more updates. Like the video, share it as well. I will see you guys in my next update. Goodbye for now.